Hi everybody. Let's put on our learning pants, and for you at home, just put on some pants maybe. So I am talking about the way of the tool, and we will be making tools on the fly in Unity to develop it really fast. And some of you may be asking, but this is a jam, why are we making tools? Isn't that a waste of time? But we're going to make them really, really small. So some considerations for making tools. How much time do I have left in the gem? You probably don't want to make a tool if you only have like 5 or 10 minutes left in the gem. It's kind of useless. How long will it take to make the tool? How much time will it save for each use of the tool? And how many times will you need to use it? So I've made a math version. So on the top side, you have time per use times used. That would be your original time taken. And on the bottom, you have, if you made the tool, how much time it would take to make the tool, plus the shortened time and the same amount of times used. And all we need to do is solve for speed. So what rules can we use to make helpful tools? We want to make tools that we can test with immediately. We don't want to play through half our level to be able to test any particular function. And we want to see really only what we care about. If we have all these extra variables with us, it just presents a lot of cognitive noise and you have to think about too much. So we're going to dive into the bang for your buck stuff first. And then after that, we'll just touch on some stuff you can explore for probably after the gem. So those things are custom inspectors. This will be your big bang for the buck. Menu and context menus, which will be pretty okay. And then handles and gizmos, which is going to be some fun adventure fantasy land stuff. So let's go into custom inspectors the quick draw way. So basically all we really need here is using buttons and labels. We just want to be able to make methods go and see any information. And probably some other stuff, but that's for exploring. So we're going to jump into Unity, and I'm going to show some things I've made here. So I have a little inspector demo. It has a button to add to A, a button to add to B. I hope people can see that. And a button that does a random thing to the variables-ish, and also shows the information on the button itself. So it's presenting the information in different ways. Oh God, that's huge. To make such a thing, we have our class, and I'm sorry for all the artists out there. This is pretty much for developers, but you could get into development. So we have our class up here, which does all the things. And then below, we have something called the editor class. So it's gonna it's going to inherit from editor, and we're going to say it's a custom editor for the inspector demo class that I have up there. Has some variables that we don't need to worry about, and we have this function on inspector GUI, which tells the inspector to update every frame and do these things. Draw default inspector will say take all the original stuff that Unity already provides by default and present it, and then we'll do all of our other stuff underneath it. So here I'm just putting down some label fields, which says A and a value. So that is some easy way to get your information. This is just for formatting, just to put things underneath. And then here we have some buttons. This is kind of the bread and butter. If GUI layout.button, whatever the button is supposed to say, and then whatever it does inside. Usually what I like to do is if there's anything that's sort of hard to access in my class, I make a button that just activates that thing so I can just test it immediately in the scene. So this is the A and B that shows the information in the button. So if you don't want to do a label, you can just put it all in the button and keep it as compact as possible. And we'll get to that stuff later. it's pretty important to add if Unity editor preprocessor tags if you don't want this in your builds, which is a waste of compiler time and such. So always try to wrap these editor classes with that preprocessor tag. So next we're going to move on to menu item toolbar items and context menu items. So up here, I hope I didn't lose it, I have a static method with a menu item attribute that says put this menu item here and slash put it underneath that. So that will create this up here, menu item demo, do a menu, and it does my thing. I think you can only do menu item attributes with static methods, so that's something to keep in mind. And context menus, this one's a little bit more useful, I find. They're both useful. I want only to see this if I right-click on this script and reset the values. So I have a reset values context menu there, and it resets everything. This can only be done on a non-static method, I believe. So that's that one. It's kind of the same thing, but it's a different place, basically. And now, let's go into the fun stuff. We've got handles, which we can use to create visual tools in our scene view, and gizmos, which is similar. It allows you to display them. Handles kind of does it also, but we will see. So here, I'll show you what it actually does first. We have a Bezier curve class that I made 4 handles for. So usually when you have a transform, you just have the regular. So this is where the object actually is. But you can make as many of these as you want, which is really cool. And you can also make those buttons, any buttons you have on the scene view. So I can put a button there attached to this point, and I can press it whenever. So it really presents it in a very contextual way. So you don't really have to go searching for it when you're playing around in the scene view, which I think is really cool. So I made another one that targets another object. So I just have an ordinary cube here, doesn't do anything, but this class, when it targets it, I can do all sorts of things. I can draw things around it. I made this nice wire sphere that will scale it when I play with it. And yeah, I like that a lot. It's very pretty, very tactile. So to do that, it's the same thing as the other editor class, except we use the on-scene GUI method. Here, it's quite simple. We just target the script, take those points, and put position handles on them. So this is where we're using handles, handles.position handle, and we're getting this point A, point B, tangent B from the class defined in the inspector over here. Then what we do is we take all those, put it into an array, and just draw them with handles. Handles has a nice little draw Bezier function already, so it does it for us. And all this giant mess here is to make that one button. So you have to define where you're putting it in a rectangle definition. Say where it is, how high and how wide it is, and where it's going to be. So I put it on, I don't see where it is. I think right there. I think that says where this handle is. So it's just following this, which I only learned about writing this talk. So that's pretty cool. And this is just drawing all those extra things on that cube down there. So I like that pretty stuff. There is a lot more to explore, and I need to find my notes because there's a lot of cool stuff I want to go over that I'll just touch on briefly. Ooh. This is stuff to explore. So I am a madman, and I used reflection to create. Reflection just lets you see everything in the class. It's kind of like, it's very meta. It lets it know about itself. So down here, what I did is I used that to get a list of every class I defined in here, or every method, even the private ones. So you have a lot of power. And I made it spit out a list of buttons that I can press to just call any single method I have in the class. So you can just pop this in there, and instead of writing it every time, you can just have this automatically generate. And if you're really fancy, you can change your script template to have it automatically generate every time you create a new script, which is cool. So then you don't have to go through all that. You can just go, I want to test this function as soon as I write it. No overhead. I think that's really cool and kind of makes me feel a little dirty doing it because I don't really like using reflection all that much. But then there's another thing called property drawers, which is you can write your own version of any sort of field that Unity defines. So Kai made this property drawer that is just a better version of the audio clip inspector field. So you can play it in the inspector, you can see where it's being played, instead of having to find it in the project view, click it, play it, to find out what it is. You can just do it all right there. That's a little more advanced, so I'm not going to get into that. Kai is a bit of a genius when it comes to that stuff, and I've never touched it at all, so that's all I have to say about that. Unity has a lot of really useful attributes that I didn't really know of before that can really help your tool making. You can make it able to edit multiple objects instead of just one. You can hide the fields in the inspector if you have them public and you're doing weird stuff. You can tell it to draw a gizmo based on the method you're in. So if you don't really want to make a whole extra thing, you can just tell it, hey, draw this thing, draw a picture here, which is pretty useful. And you can also make all of your custom tools use the undo stack, which is built into Unity. So if you are kind of getting angry at not being able to undo any of your stuff, you can actually add it onto the Unity undo stack. But I haven't done any of that here. That's stuff to explore later. And that is basically it. Go forth and seize the jam with your toolsmithing power now. I'm Steve Chabadi. I'm only on Discord because I hate social media. And also check out the Winnipeg Unity user group, which Kai and I coordinate on meetup.com. Thank you.